Good afternoon, John. Donovan.
Hey, Marty.
Here we are, the last podcast of June.
Wow.
And before we get going, I want to let our audience know that we will not be podcasting next week. I'm got to go back to Texas, so we'll pick this up again the second Friday in July.
Okay.
But we forgot to tell you guys that last time, so
Yeah.
make it clear. Several things have come up among some of the folks that are doing the work, the accountability work in our Rusty Nail Club. I wanted to get your thoughts about, and these are related. Number one is how the insight that in life nothing's wrong, or in this work that we're doing nothing's wrong, how that relates to the fact that we have to make choices. We have to choose this over that. We have to assess that this is better for me and that's worse for me, or even in the realm of morality or public morality, personal morality, we have to have some kind of way of saying, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a powerful inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we start by explaining where nothing's wrong came from in this work and how it fits in.
Okay.
And of course, the corollary to that is in our accountability tree at the very top, we say no blame, no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
As we begin to examine ourselves, examine the truth, examine the issues within, we support each other in telling the truth without making ourselves wrong for the truth that we're about to say.
Yeah. Okay.
So, just a minor issue.
Yeah, and it's a concept that garners dialogue and questions and curiosity. Oh, so okay, let me. And nothing's wrong. When I got that for myself, what I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I'm not saying it isn't either painful or frustrating and or irritating, agitating. When I identify it as wrong, then I'm addressing something that is completely out of my control. It's a situation, people, places, and things. And or I'm feeling sad, and that's wrong. I'm pulling myself out of where I'm at, which is the only place I get information. And we've been taught to see things as positive, negative, good, bad, instead of what they are, and then us making a decision about where we're at, noticing where we're at so we can decide to either stay there or move to another place. When I get into the moralizing of whatever the situation is, then I have an argument, then I can prove a point, then I can show that I'm intelligent, or that I can show that I'm good, because I have to prove to people I'm good, because being seen as bad is a trigger for me, or it triggers my family of origin trauma, and I don't even know this is going on. So, and it's in the language. It's in how we choose to speak that actually creates the I want to say hell, creates the situations we find ourselves in that we so sorely want to resist and get out of. And I don't know, now it sounds like I'm talking in circles. I don't know.
Well, let me see if I can help you get out of the circle.
Okay.
So I was thinking about one of the books that we often share here, which is Sherry Huber's book, There's Nothing Wrong with You. So there you got the word nothing's wrong. in the title. And I think what you're getting at here is we look at this developmentally. We're in a process here. We're going, using the accountability practice, we're going from being controlled by subconscious processes that show up for us as compulsive behaviors, doing things that even our minds say don't do, and we do them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're seeking to free ourselves from that compulsive behavior by noticing what's actually going on, by being able to speak the truth of what's going on.
Right.
And so we start from the perspective of we're just human beings developing along the lines of our potential, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we often discuss, or we often use in our work, I hold value as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the nothing's wrong, at least initially, as we apply it here, is to say to the person who wants to create a world out of his or her own choice, that we start with, you can't do it wrong. Whatever's going on is what's going on. It has its own integrity by virtue of it's what's actually happening in the moment.
Right.
And so what I was hearing you say, and I was identifying with that, is that whenever, at least when I began this work, whenever I experienced something stressful, I would almost immediately have a judgment about it.
Yes.
Along the lines of, you shouldn't feel that way, or don't let anybody know you think that, or that's stupid. And I think that's what we're talking about, is to create some space from that voice, so that we can go to the emotional state that the truth was there for us to experience.
Yes.
And so I'll just end my thoughts here by saying what I learned is that critical thinking voice in my mind was actually part of the defense mechanism designed to not let me feel the impact of that truth statement.
Yep.
So when we say no blame, no judgment, nothing's wrong, all we're asking for people is essentially to suspend belief in that critical voice, so that we can follow this process of the accountability tree down to what do I want, and into personal choice.
Correct. Out of blame and judgment into a lucid moment where the self-critical mind shuts down for a while and allows experience and then choice. I mean, from the first part of our learning language is, oh, you're a good kid or you're a bad kid. And I'm thinking more like with an infant, it's just more looking at giggling, cooing. And then once I started exploring, I got punished for that exploration if it wasn't done correctly according to somebody else's needs, like my mother, father. If I broke something, spilt milk, and then the punishment, ridicule,
or even just an angry response that's not necessarily directed to us personally.
Right. And then I had to like figure out how to process whatever was going on with me, and I didn't have the mirror, the mature adult in my life to go, oh, I see that startled you, or I see that scared you, or I see you're scared, and to know that that I'm not my behaviors, and that I'm separate from my behaviors. I don't get punished for the things I do. And when it did happen, I got punished for the things I did. I equated that to me. And in my little boy body mind, I'm bad. There's something wrong with me. I need to be good. And these are not conscious thoughts that I ever remember having. And the result of it was people pleasing, compromising myself, not being able to say no, and all the attributes of somebody raised in a dysfunctional home or that received, I want to say severe and maybe not so severe childhood trauma in order to survive. It gets, it's a survival mechanism. And then my critical mind goes into good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative. And of course, the obvious choice is the good, right, positive to stay there, which gets me out of my feeling body into my rational justification, self-critical mind, which I was taught to do. Yeah.
So one of the things that occurred to me, I think I shared this with us on this podcast when I was writing my book, is I had this insight that critical mind, that languaging critical mind, actually comes out of the emotional configuration, the defense mechanism, as if the emotional decisions that we made to defend ourselves trained the thinking mind as it emerged. So there was never any hope that our thinking mind would be anything but an ally to the defense mechanism.
Correct.
So, so that's why that's one of the reasons that in the accountability process, we go to the emotion as the primary source of change. Because as the thinking mind was trained by the emotional body, it can be retrained by the emotional body.
Yes.
Through this work.
And I want to offer connected in the proper sequence.
Yeah, there you go.
Emotional, feeling, rational mind. And in my trauma, I got separated from my emotional feeling body and relied on my rational mind. And that's where seeing the difference. And the difference is good, bad, right, wrong, okay, not okay. And I got stuck in this world where, as a human being connected to my emotional feeling body, I could be in a flow. An example of this is when I felt embarrassed, that was an attack that became an attack, or it became something I had to defend or dismiss or blame on somebody because I can't be seen as vulnerable. And this is not a conscious awareness. This is the conscious awareness I have now after doing this accountability work for 20 years. So having reconnected my feeling emotional body, I can simply feel embarrassed and know internally in this survival mechanism that I'm not going to die. I'm simply either turning red or have a odd look on my face, or I'm like, oh, wow, that was like, I don't want to say stupid, but that was embarrassing. And it happened to me this morning. I have dyslexia. And when I get somebody's name backwards or mixed up, I'll choose, and I'll always go to the one that's not it, whatever the name is. And there's this young gentleman in my group who has been in my group for 3 months, and he's doing really well. And Mike, and his turn came, and I said, okay, Mike. And he looked at me like, who's Mike? And and then I just got it. Okay, I'm in this dyslexic place. I actually turned red. I could feel the flush in and I simply felt the embarrassment. It's like, okay, all right, this is my dyslexia flaring up, because his name was absent from my awareness, and that's right. that's a symptom of. So I simply explained to him, I have dyslexia, and right now I had Mike and your name, whatever it is, I don't know what it is right now, mixed up. So I always go to Mike. That's part of my dyslexia. And then he said, well, I'm Jack. And then the name, okay, I got it. It's Jack. And I don't know how Jack and Mike could get mixed up, but it does in my mind. So I talked to him about it. I talked to him about my dyslexia, and I told him, I said, in as a human, knowing somebody's name is important to the other person. It's an acknowledgement. And I want you to know that I know that, and that's what happened to me. And so we talked about it. I talked more to the whole group about my dyslexia, and there was one point where I said something about getting the names mixed up, and a friend of Jack's, thought it was just hilarious, and he started laughing out loud, which it was. I get it that there was some humor that he could see in that, and I didn't take offense to his laughter. I saw that as an alignment with what's going on, and I happen to be the center of attention in this alignment. And I simply waited and then explained, and I wasn't wrong. This wasn't not supposed to happen. And I can absolutely process my embarrassment without either having to criticize myself or blame somebody else for my snafu or being wrong. My defense around embarrassment is gone. Before my recovery, if I would have been embarrassed, somebody would have gotten hurt. I would have either demeaned and diminished myself, or I would have attacked somebody else and deflected the embarrassment instead of just feeling the embarrassment. It wasn't, nothing's wrong. It simply is what it is, and it's embarrassing to have this condition and have it flare up in the middle of me facilitating a group, and feeling what Jack must have felt with, you don't know my name. It's like I could see that pain in our connection and our my capacity to build rapport with people. That could have been damaging without me holding my space. I'm not wrong. I'm not bad. I'm not stupid. And not having to defend myself or deflect that. And then exemplify for him what it is I hope he can gain in his life, which is, nothing's wrong. It is what it is. It's embarrassing. It's irritating, agitating, otherwise annoying. And we're still here. We're still connecting.
There's a couple of points to pick up out of that great story. First is what you said at the very top of the conversation, which is that there's nothing wrong and it can hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to see if I can state that a slightly different way, which is the fact that nothing is wrong does not exempt us from our humanity.
Yes, or feeling pain, embarrassment,
right.
Frustration.
Or making mistakes, or doing something clumsy, or forgetting someone's name. I mean, I could legitimately forget your name and still not have dyslexia.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I could have sat down on my chair kind of haphazardly and fell on the floor, and there's nothing wrong.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, that was a snafu, that was embarrassing, and then just be able to be okay with what is, and not make a big deal out of it. And that's, of course, I wanted to.
Well, that's the second point I wanted to illustrate, is that as we do accountability practice day in, day out, we can get to the place where we can have embarrassing or painful experiences and just notice that's what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And have that critical voice. In my case, I still get the critical voice, but I don't get the energy to do anything about it. The voice still goes, what the hell was that? But much more frequently, that's all it is. It's just a voice that doesn't have the emotional kick to it. Doesn't have the punishing or repressing emotion to it.
Right.
And sometimes I think as I've listened to you share your own experience, sometimes it doesn't happen at all. The voice just doesn't, there's no commentary.
Yeah.
There's just realization of, oops,
look at that.
Yeah, exactly.
There I go again. When I was processing this, and there was not, I'm not talking about a specific time, is like how I've come to put this all together. One of my awarenesses was that somebody who is spontaneous and authentic and sometimes awkward and peculiar is an that you, I saw that as an endearing quality in them, which was a bonding thing. And then if I did it, then it was like, oh, I'm stupid. There's something wrong with me. Oh, how come I did that? I would just incessantly beat myself up. But for the other person, I would get, okay, this guy's got this peculiar thing, and it's endearing. It's like this guy is authentic. He's peculiar, and it's cool. It's like showing our proclivities at our humanity and our things. Um, I had just for an example of this, how kids put things together. When I was in high school, my grandmother died of a heart attack. So she died of a heart attack. So I have cousins that are younger than me, and one who is 5 years younger than me. Heard, oh, grandma had a heart attack, and I was talking to her years later, and we were talking about grandma, and she goes, when they said grandma had a heart attack, she said, I was wondering how she got the tack in her heart. And she said, the only way I could figure out how they got the tack in her heart was to hide it in the mashed potatoes. So she said for the next 5 years, whenever she had mashed potatoes, she would go through the mashed potatoes looking for those tacks that would get on her heart. So those are the kind of things that are just endearing. They're just cool, being human, part of growth and being together.
Remember what Art Linkletter said, kids say the darndest things.
Yeah, yeah. So
now, for those of you too young to know who Art Linkletter is, you can look him up on Google.
yeah. Yeah.
So I think that again, for somebody who might be coming to this practice fairly recently, nothing's wrong is a willingness to accept things as they are, as just an experiment in change.
Yes.
I mean, one of the other things that I noticed, I spent some time talking about in my book, is that the thinking mind is thinking itself is based on off-on. It's based on discrimination. It's got to cut things up into pieces because that's what it does. It's not really a paradox understander. It's very difficult for the thinking brain to hold contradictory ideas in mind or paradox. And so it's programmed for right and wrong. And so as we do this work, we're obviously not seeking to stop our mind from thinking. That's not possible any more than we can stop our heart from beating. What we're seeking to do is to just suspend judgment for a little bit so that we can put our focus on the feeling body, the feeling experience, the sensation that a statement about ourselves will produce. And again, we say that because we've come to understand that letting the emotions free is the essential dynamic of this practice.
Yes, and people that are drawn to this work are looking at reconciling either an addiction, an obsession, a pattern of behavior that they have recognized is detrimental, and yet they find that they cannot change it. So they're looking for relief from some dilemma in their life. For me, it was alcohol addiction. And then it was self-critical mind. I would just incessantly beat myself up and criticize myself and demean and diminish myself. And the harder I wanted not to do that, the more it would seem obsessive. So this practice is for people looking for something that they can't seem to get for themselves, like peace of mind, a feeling of self-confidence or self-forgiveness. So it's not just if you're walking down the street and your life's cool, yeah, okay, cool. And maybe you don't need this. If you're struggling with something, a belief, a pattern of behavior, how you perceive the world, and you're getting it that, okay, maybe I need to look at this. This practice is a way to sort this out. And us talking about nothing's wrong, it addresses one of the biggest obsessive things that drive either my alcoholism or my addiction or my obsessive violent behavior, which was this internal mechanism that was wounded. And I would find myself in a behavior that I would even recognize in the moment, what am I doing? Stop. And I found that I couldn't or wouldn't be able to stop the behavior or the abuse that I was dishing out or giving myself. So that's the start point is in this conversation is for people who are looking for something that they don't have, like I said, peace of mind or ability to say no to drugs, or just to make a choice around something they want to be able to make a choice, and they find themselves in the place they don't want to be the majority of time. So this is sorting all that out. And one of the biggest things that keeps my addiction and compulsive behavior intact is my judgment of myself. And if I can simply get to my truth, like, hi, my name's John, I'm an alcoholic, and not hear that critical mind, just say it as where I've come to see myself in my truth. Maybe I don't like it, there's feeling around it, there's sadness and hurt, and maybe some fear around, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. And without the blame or judgment, it gives me that place I've been looking for, which is that decision to act. Somebody asked me, what do I do about if I had child fetal alcoholic syndrome, where your mother drank and you've got this problem because of her drinking. And I just simply said, accept and address. So if I have fetal alcohol syndrome, I'm going to accept that that's what I have, and then look how to address it. But usually it's like, oh, I'm screwed, or there's no hope for me, or I'm consigned to drinking, or I'm consigned to being bipolar, or I'm consigned to be this messed up place because I have fetal alcohol syndrome. There's ways to move through it. An example is I have dyslexia. When I get something turned around, the first time I hear it, it stays turned around. Okay, so I accept that. And in this meeting this morning, I addressed it. I didn't beat myself up for being stupid or not being able to remember or whatever I used to do. Okay, I accept that I have dyslexia. Just one of the symptoms of dyslexia is getting this name thing turned around or not being able to remember names. Okay, I have that. That's what happened. And I want you to know that it's nothing between you and I, that I value our relationship. And I just did that. I just forgot your name. Sometimes I do that with my daughters. It's like, and then I have to, oh, Andrea, or oh, Jessica, and it's like, are you kidding me, Dad? You don't know my name? I can see the hurt in them, and okay, yeah, that's what happened, and this is my mind, how it works, and I want you to know that I love you.
One of the tools that you taught us, and I think if we've talked about this before, that this was just an intuitive hit for you, but it's that I give myself permission sentence. I give myself permission to be dyslexic. I give myself permission to be clumsy. I give myself permission to be forgetful. I give myself permission to be angry. I give myself permission to not want to come to this meeting.
Right.
Whatever it is, because that's another way of affirming nothing's wrong.
Of nothing's wrong. My alcoholism was in alignment with my childhood trauma. It hurt. It had tremendous destructional impact on the people around me. That is all true. When I couched it as wrong, I stayed stuck in some obsessive behavior. When I saw it for what it is, damaging, and the impact on the people I loved was horrendous. I could feel that pain, take a breath, and it is my intent to be a loving, caring, nurturing father. And I'm an alcoholic. Okay, so the pain inflicted from the denial of my alcoholism, it's like, I don't need to go to AA meetings. I don't need that. Why are you talking about it? How come you're always picking on me? Went to, I am going to go to a meeting, which gave hope to those people I had just devastated. It's like, okay. So I owned that thing I didn't want to own. And that was the relief. That was like, this is so counterintuitive that it just boggles people's mind, and it works. And if I can offer somebody the experience of them simply saying where they find themselves, no matter how, I want to use the word heinous, it may seem, the heinous may be correct, the pain may be viable and palpable, and it's not out of alignment with the trauma. And if we had a correctional system and a judicial system that saw this alignment, instead of punishment, it would be rehabilitation. It would be, oh, what does this person need to feel safe based on, and I'm not advocating that people just go free. I'm not advocating that. There's a process that is different than what we're doing that can bring major relief to our whole society. If simply we dialogue about it, we just simply have the conversation about it, like you and I are having right now, about nothing's really wrong. A lot of this stuff hurts, is devastating. Yes, it's destructive. Yes, that is true. When I couch it as wrong, I keep myself stuck in this old alignment and find myself with no recourse except to beat myself up some more, or judge people more, or increase the punishment. Maybe they'll learn that now. And it's like, oh my God, what a downward spiral.
Well, the challenge is that so we're products of our culture.
Yeah.
That's part of the challenge that we have in recovery, is that it's not just our own individual family culture that we're dealing with, we're coming out of, we're also coming out of a collective culture. Yeah. And we have increasingly in this country, I don't know about the rest of the world, but I can't imagine it's much different, but we've increasingly somehow come to this collective decision that being victims is some kind of way to go, to celebrate victimhood and blame. And so that the issue that you raise is just part of a larger cultural conversation that we have.
Yes.
And it's what I find is, speaking to someone that nothing's wrong, who's committed to everything's wrong, that's a tough conversation to have. And it has to be done in increments. That's my experience. Well, and it has to be done without any belief on my part that someone else has to change his or her beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's untenable.
So again, what I've said before on this podcast is the most political thing we can do is recovery, or is accountability.
Yes, I agree.
That in order to become a citizen who is not driven by the collective compulsions, the collective fears, the collective defense mechanism, I've got to see my own.
Yes.
And I've got to practice dealing with it, just as you were saying a few minutes ago. And then I get to, so here's where we don't spend a whole lot of time on this podcast or in our meetings, but sooner or later we're going to have to, is we can then work on applying what we learn about ourselves to our civic lives.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can see the same dynamics that operate in our personal lives, they also operate in our lives as citizens. We talked about this before. It's the noticing the projection onto, for example, political figures that we don't like.
Yeah.
And like, well, there's something to teach me about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had this conversation the other day with somebody. We were talking about a president that shall not be named, um, President Trump, and this person was immediately flew into this emotional denunciation of Trump. And I
Yeah.
said, so what's the primary judgment you have against this guy? He's an asshole. I said, well, are
Uh-huh.
you willing then to consider the possibility that you're an asshole? Now, this is somebody in accountability.
Okay. Yeah. Own your projections. Yeah, that's a conversation you do not have with somebody walking down the street.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. And the parameters are in the meetings are, I'm looking for some kind of relief. And if I realize that what I see in somebody else that I have major issue with is something that's hidden from me,
Right.
it's keeping me down, then there's it's in alignment with I'm looking for something I don't have. Yeah. So this is a conversation that has pre-loading a lot of information before. If I'm looking to find peace in my life, one of the things is on my projections, what you see in the other person is true about you, especially when you got high energy around it.
Exactly.
And then I can relieve something in me. I can still look at the other individual and point out this guy has problems too.
Yeah.
But I'm in a place of compassion rather than a place of judgment.
And I'm in a place of discernment rather
Yes.
than condemnation.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
I was trying to convince or not convince. We had a very good conversation about it. I said, the thing about projection is it doesn't mean the other person doesn't have those characteristics
Correct.
that I am reacting to, but if I'm reacting to them at a high level of agitation, it's about me.
It's about
Or at
me.
least I would be invited to be willing to consider they're about me.
Right.
It doesn't mean, again, it's not one of our principles here is not about the other person.
Right. Yeah, we have all this. Nothing's wrong. It's not about the other person. People treat me exactly the way I ask them to treat me. The issue is never the issue, and people are
Right.
looking at us like, "What? What?" It's like, "What are you talking about?" And part what this does is give me a different language to use to express myself. Um, an example of that. Well, I don't know how good example because it might start somewhere like when I look at you, I do not see you. I see a projection of me. Okay. Okay. So how do I get to see you? Well, I own my projection. And when I'm owning my projection, it's now not hindering me seeing you. Now, the end result is I may like you, I may not like you, I may want to move closer to you, I may want to move away. And that's my prerogative. That's my choice. In this place of compassion, in this place of discernment, and where I want to spend my energy and how effective I want to be in my sphere of responsibility. It's like I'm not going to go chase any of the political figures down and say, but hey, dude, you need to talk to me for just give me 5 minutes and I'll straighten a whole lot of shit out that you're kind of working on right now. Because it's like that's out of my zone, field, sphere of responsibility. My sphere of responsibility is the people willing to talk to me, make an agreement to come to the class. And then I make agreements with the people in my life about how I can talk to them. If they want to process, they'll process. And I'm thinking about my daughters right now. I ask them, do you want me to listen? You want to process this, or do you want my feedback? And they get to tell me what they want. And then I simply give them what they're asking for. It's my choice. I don't have to compromise myself. I'm cooperating with this person who happens, I'm talking about my daughters right now, in their life the way it is. And I'm out of my judgment or my need to have them be something different than they are. They can be who they are.
There's a deeper spiritual opportunity in nothing's wrong. I'm going to say it at the risk of losing some of the audience, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is where I've put my marker in life. the capacity to own nothing's wrong opens me up to the possibility of experiencing in myself all human experience.
Yeah.
Can I experience myself as a right winger? Can I experience myself as a left winger? Can I experience myself as racist? Can I experience myself as non-racist? Can I experience myself as left-handed? Can I experience myself as right-handed? Can I see in me all of humanity? So that when I look at humanity, I no longer have the triggering energy when I see something that I, quote, don't like, or
Right.
quote, don't identify with. I intend to identify with all of it.
Yeah.
So that's the Christian message. It may also be the message of other of our major religions, like there's only one of us. There's only one thing going on. And the opportunity here, by withdrawing projections and being willing to own my projections, is to notice that whatever it is that agitates me is about my humanity.
Yeah.
And so if I give myself permission to be human, then the automatic corollary of that spiritually is I give you permission to be human.
Yeah.
And then I give us permission to be human. And it shifts the whole question of right or wrong, it shifts the whole question of me versus the universe. It starts to elevate the possibility of how we are in this world. When we don't find our, I work on ceasing my internal civil war, but that's to the service of ending my war with the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if this makes sense, but that's I'm trying to find good language to say this is all. The next step for all of us is identifying as human being, no matter what.
Yeah. Jordan Peterson was talking about the German people, and then somebody judging them as, oh, I wouldn't do that. If they were doing that around here, I would stand up and I would fight it and I would do this. And he said, whoa, 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 just whoa, stop. Consider this, that you're capable as they are, and they did, that's also in you. And until you can recognize that, the threat of fascism or ideology is still a threat. Because if I don't see myself as able, I wouldn't participate because I'm a good person, just sets up the fertile ground for, well, I want to say ideology, some ideology taking over where a group of people are seen as wrong, bad, and another group of people are seen as right, good. And then we got that war and justification for the elimination of them.
Yeah. Well, we're already there in our culture, and they said it couldn't happen here.
I know, just, yeah. Just
so then how can I look at all of that and see it as me, as opposed to I'm better than that? Because that's the slippery slope. Because I'm better than that creates you against me, and creates it's a version of my internal civil war. I'm not lovable, I'm unlovable, and therefore I'm going to react every time I see somebody not loving me. I'm going to react with anger or violence, either to self or others, and I'm not going to have peace. I'm not going to have connection and vulnerability.
Offer this example. In the jails, there was this thing about racist. That person's a racist, and that justified whatever heinous thing I could do to that person because that person was racist. And I would have this conversation with the guys. Well, that person's racist, and I said, well, okay, so what do you mean? Well, that person doesn't deserve this. That person doesn't. Racist people are. And I said, oh, okay. Would you be willing to consider that you're racist against racist people? And they would look at me like, John, that's stupid. Well, okay, well, yeah, all right. So racism is blanket saying this is blanket across a whole bunch of people. You get one example, so every racist is the same way. Well, okay, is that not racism? So you're fighting racism with racism. How far are you going to get? And it's like, I have the capacity for racists. I have the capacity, and we've done this before on this podcast. I'm a racist, I'm a sexist, I'm a misogynist. And without that awareness, those behaviors will manifest through me, in spite of me. With the acknowledgement, I'm a racist, I'm a sexist, I'm a classist, those behaviors are mitigated. Those behaviors don't need to express, because I've already validated them and I have choice in the matter. And we're going to keep having this conversation. I don't think we're going to fix this today. And
well, it ain't broken and there's nothing wrong.
Right, and there's nothing wrong. And when we engage in this conversation, that's different. And all we're looking for is different. We're not looking for better. We're not looking for good versus bad. We're simply looking for different. And then once I notice that I use that rational mind that breaks everything down, I can notice this difference and then say, oh, I went from an unconscious racist to a conscious racist. So now I have choice. What do I want? Well, it is my intent to see all people as equal. And then that starts working on me and manifesting through me. And it takes the edge off the racist thing.
One of the fundamental dynamics that we're dealing with here, and it shows up in what you just said, is that we're all just wanting to be loved.
Yes.
We're all just wanting to be loved, but because we have love confused with something that seems contradictory, then even when love comes at us, we don't necessarily, I don't necessarily recognize it. And that's part of how this manifests, like war and accusation and victimization and oppressor and all that kind of stuff, because it's all the dynamic of, I just want to be loved and I have no clue how to get there.
Yeah.
And so I react in anger, resentment, self-violence. I can do all of these things and I just want to be loved.
Right.
I just want to be loved.
The part of the process of the accountability intentional living is to simply reconnect us to our emotional body, emotional feeling body. Our emotion feeling body is not judgmental. It simply takes in, this is where you're at. What the heck do you want to do? And instead of going, oh, I'm in a racist situation, that person over there, and not taking care of myself. And actually, one of my things, when I'm defending myself, I'm participating in my own oppression. It's like, instead of moving to freedom, relief, something different, I stay in the fight and prove my point to that person, and I'm lost. I'm not being authentic. I'm lost in my need to be right or prove.
Well, I'm back in my family of origin emotional environment, which
right.
which to my little kid is a home base.
Mm-hmm.
Paradoxically.
Yeah.
As a 69-year-old adult, I can look and say, I don't want to be at that home base.
Right.
But that doesn't mean a 2-year-old little Marty agrees.
Actually, yeah. Yeah. And it's about healing that child within us that's still stuck in that trauma, that shock place, that what do I do? Freeze, fight, flight, freeze, please mode. And then coming from that survival mechanism, I either fight, start a fight, or I leave, slam the door and leave the person, or I freeze and I'm like gone away. I'm still there, but I'm not present. And or I go into my please mode and placate and create more distance from being disingenuous. So, yeah.
Well, that's again, we cannot emphasize enough the power of coming back to the emotional body, because as you were talking, what came into my mind is that when we're little kids and we're experiencing some kind of no
Right.
from caregivers or family or whatever, that feels like that results in a repression of an emotional flow.
Mm-hmm.
That we've said this before in this podcast, that unfinished emotion gets locked up into our emotional body,
Yes.
gets put down into the subconscious, and it's gonna get out somehow.
Yes.
So what we're learning here is we're learning to have emotional flow naturally. Again, nothing's wrong. When I feel whatever it is I feel, it like you were just saying, I'm not feeling an opinion. I'm just feeling a feeling.
Right.
And so the accountability practice starts with coming into the emotion of the reality that I find myself in, because as a little kid, I couldn't finish it.
Right. Yeah. It's stuck.
I was stuck. I was repressed. I was
Mhm.
violated.
Mm-hmm.
No blame, no judgment of the people that did that either.
Right.
That's just what happened.
That's what
But
happened.
now, with this process, I can allow all of those frozen emotions to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens, as you've said in this podcast before, when I get in alignment with the truth of what my inner experience is. I'm an asshole, I'm an idiot, whatever. And my body relaxes and I tell the truth,
Mm-hmm.
because the emotion is now freed.
Yes.
It can now flow
It's been validated.
and validated.
Yes.
And so the I can't list how many times I've had that experience in the 10 years that I've been doing this practice, of just allowing an emotion that was not allowed to complete itself to get completed,
Yes.
and how that changes everything in the subconscious
Right.
bit by bit, so that over time the need for that defense mechanism to be in hypervigilance just dissipates.
Yes.
And little Marty actually does start allowing actual unconditional love into his experience.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. You can't heal it unless you feel it. And another thing I was thinking while you were talking is, if I don't heal that trauma internally, I transmit that trauma.
Hurt people hurt people.
Hurt people hurt people. And when I didn't stop hurting people until what I actually experienced hurt. I was so far removed from my emotional feeling body that somebody said, "Well, I'm hurt. That's hurtful." And I'm thinking, "What a sissy!" It's like, buck up. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just like, just get on with it. Quit that. And then once I experienced pain, hurt, uh, I am reticent to transmit it, because I know what it feels like. Um, and I can cooperate with people. Before, the idea of cooperating meant impending doom. If I cooperated with somebody, I was saying either I classified myself as a hypocrite, or what's the other word I was thinking about? Oh, I compromised myself. No, and just for a remedial example, if I'm going out to dinner with somebody and they want Chinese and I'm not feeling Chinese, I want Mexican, I can go, oh, okay, for the relationship today, I'm going to do Chinese with you. I don't want Chinese. I'm cooperating because I want to build a relationship, where before it was, oh, you always want Chinese. It's always Chinese. It's like, okay, I never get what I want. And I go into my little hissy fit, not sissy, but hissy fit and stomp
No blame, no
around
judgment.
and say I'm not heard, or you don't care about me. When the truth was, my parents weren't capable of caring about me at this level. They did care about me. At this level, they were not capable. So that's the wounding inside me when I go, oh, okay, I'm going to choose. I'm going to cooperate. Okay, let's do that. Where I couldn't even do that before, because then I was giving myself up, and they were always, it's about win-win, win-lose. Now it's a win-win. Okay, we'll do Chinese this time.
Well, the other side of it, I'm assuming if I'd stay with that example, is I can also ask for what I want and see if the
Yes.
other person might be willing to give it to me.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I just sit like with that resentment. Oh, you always want Chinese. Well, what would happen if I
Right.
said, hey, I'd like to do Mexican today. What do you think?
Mhm.
And then if the person
Yeah.
says, no way, then I'll say, okay. But if I don't
Yep.
tell the other person what I want, I'm
Mhm.
just setting myself up for a resentment, which by the way, can feel really good
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'm back in my
Vengeance.
family of origin. I'm back at home base.
Yeah.
Or as we say in Adult Children of Alcoholics, I'm back in the internal drugstore,
Mhm.
freely tippling.
Yep. Adrenaline and cortisoids and stressors, and
Yeah,
which was my drug of choice.
exactly.
Recreating that family of origin trauma, which was riddled with adrenaline, cortisoids, all the stressor, getting me ready to fight, flight, freeze, please.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we started this hour with the inquiry into how is nothing's wrong, right? If I can be poetic. How is it right that nothing's wrong?
Yeah, how is the concept that nothing's wrong can be
Right.
advantageous to my peace of mind? Yes. Yeah.
And so what we explored is that we're really going for something that's not a mental truth, but it's a feeling truth.
Right.
And when I'm in my feeling body, nothing can be wrong. I can only be in the feeling that I'm having in any given moment. I can change my thoughts, but my feelings are what they are, and
Mhm.
they flow naturally. They always complete. Whatever I'm feeling is going to be followed up by something else sooner or later, and usually sooner. And so when I'm in my physical body, I'm actually in the field of all possibility. When
Well
I
put. Yeah.
when I allow
Absolutely.
myself to just feel, that's what accountability is for me. When I
Mhm.
tell the truth and I just feel the result of telling the truth, that's when I can now ask, what do I want?
Mhm.
And I can declare it. Whatever shows up, I intend to be a good parent. I intend to feel peaceful. As we share in our meetings, it doesn't matter what you want. As long as it's authentic, it's a result of that feeling. You can say whatever it is that you want,
Yeah.
and then you can set the intention.
Yep.
So that's our process. We start with telling the truth of what's going on, and we feel whatever it is that shows up by telling that truth, and then
Mhm.
in that feeling space, we ask a new question. What do I want? What do I want right now? And then I
Yeah.
set my intention. Okay, I want peace. I intend to have peace.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have seen the workbook, there's a little red line, double red line that comes back to the top, looks like a heart, and it says repeat.
Yeah.
And we do it again the next time I feel agitated, pissed off, scared,
Right.
angry, judgmental, critical. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
what's the truth about this? And I've said this to you before, John, but 99 times out of 100, when I'm feeling that energy, I'm feeling unloved.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, okay, I'm feeling unloved. I'm feeling lonely. Well, what do I want? And that just even asking the question settles the energy down.
Yes.
It creates a connection with myself at the very least.
It's the basics of any 12-step program. Move from reactor to actor. In this reactive mode, I'm always beating my head against the wall or wanting, and then simply the same situation might happen, and instead of reacting, I have a lucid moment. Oh, what do I want in this situation? Huh?
Right.
I'm gonna go for Chinese, or I'm gonna stick to my guns for Mexican. It's like I get to choose and do it in a way that is not threatening or demeaning somebody else or accusatory, just simply stating where I'm at in the moment.
Right.
Or make a compromise. We'll go get takeout from a Chinese place and a Mexican place. Hey, what about that idea?
Way more possibilities than
Yeah,
occurs to me when I'm just pissed off.
right. Yeah. Cool.
Well, as always, John, any last minute thoughts? Wrap up thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, this is not about fixing anybody or changing anybody. It's about becoming more aware of the process that we find ourselves in, and moving to relief and cooperation and wholeness. And nothing's wrong, nothing's broke. It's been misinformed by, and I call that the trauma or the childhood dysfunction, family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma. It's simply misinformation about me projected on from my parents or guardians that I tried to reconcile and work with. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So.
Well, thank you, John, for your time as always.
You're welcome.
Anybody who would like to experience this work, we do this work in groups. There are 4 different Zoom meetings that you can participate in, all California time. Monday nights at 6:30, Thursday nights at 6:30, Saturday mornings at 8:30, and then that's for men and women, and then there's a men's only meeting Tuesdays at 6 p.m. all Eastern. Well, that's a projection. Pacific time.
Right.
And so John's and my emails email addresses are going to be on the screen after the podcast's over. Feel free to contact either of us, and we'll send you an invitation to one of those meetings as you choose. And everybody's welcome.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Marty.
And as we said, we won't be doing this next week, so pick us up again on the second Friday of July.
Got it.
All right, John.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.